So first we're going to talk about fractions with like denominators. Remember that fractions that have like denominators have denominators that are the same, and they're called like fractions. Meaning I like to deal with fractions that have the same denominator. But no. All right. So when we have something that looks like this, 1/4 plus 2/4. Really all we have to do is we can do 1 plus 2 over 4. This equals 3/4. Basically, this fourths is a label. It's kind of like saying, all right, I have a basket full of oranges. If I add 1 orange and 2 oranges, I'm going to get 3 oranges. See that? 1/4 plus 2/4 equals 3/4. If they're the same, we can add them together, no problem. Subtraction is the same way. If we have a like denominator, so let's go with 5/6 minus 1/6. All we have to do is 5 minus 1 over 6, because we already have something in common. We have the same label. So 5 minus 1 is 4 and 6. Now we did learn that we have to simplify our fractions. So at this point you should know that with 4 and 6, our factors are 1 and 4, 2 and 2. And with 6, we have 1 and 6, 2 and 3. So the greatest common factor between these two numbers is 2. So we're going to take 4/6 and simplify it by dividing by 2 over 2, which leaves us with 2/3. So again, adding and subtracting numbers with like denominators, those are called like fractions, we can add or subtract them very easily because they have the same label. Let's say we have fractions with different denominators or unlike denominators, which are called unlike fractions. So, not that I really unlike doing these fractions, but we're going to go unlike denominators. So, we've already said that our denominator is like a label. We have apples and apples and oranges and oranges. We can take the apples away from the apples, and we can take the oranges away from the oranges, but we can't necessarily take the apples away from the oranges. So we have to find a common label. Well, apples and oranges are both fruit. So we could subtract fruit from fruit or add fruit to fruit. That's how we're going to find, that's what it's like with fractions. We can't subtract 1/4 from 1/8 or 1/8 from 1/4, but if we had all fourths or all eighths, our job would be easier. So let's try a couple of examples of what that might look like. Let's say we have 1/5 plus 1/2. 1/5 plus 1/2. Okay, here's our oranges, here's our apples. Can we add apples and oranges together? No. So we have to find the greatest common factor that's going to help us put these in the same category. So for apples and oranges, we said it was fruit. Let's see what it is for 5 and 2. So we are going to write the multiples of each denominator. So we're going to find our least common denominator first. So find your least common denominator. Remember, that's done by listing the multiples of each of the denominators. So when we have 5, we list 5, 10, 15, 20. I've already gone too far. I know I'm not going to need that. And for 2, we're going to list 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Now I can see that 5 and 2 have 20 in common. That's the greatest common denominator that we have in that list. But remember, when we're trying to find like denominators, we want the least common denominator. So it's the least common denominator for finding equivalent fractions, and it's the greatest common factor for simplifying. So again, it's least common denominator, and I'll write this LCD for finding equivalent fractions, or same denominators. And it's GCF, or greatest common factor, when we're simplifying. So when I look at this, I know that 5 times 2 equals 10. And down here, I know that 2 times 5 equals 10. So when I move over and use that least common denominator to help me make my fractions like each other, I have 1/5 and I have 1/2. And I'm going to take my 1/5 because 10 was the second multiple, and I'm going to times 5 times 2 and 1 times 2. This is going to give me 2/10. With 1/2, I know that I had to multiply 2 times 5 to get 10. So whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. Now I can add 2/10 plus 5/10 because I have fruit. I don't just have apples and oranges, I actually have fruit. So what that looks like on the line is 2 plus 5/10, which equals 7/10. Looking at these, if I wanted to simplify, I could list out 1 times 7. Those are the only factors for 7. The greatest common factor that 7 and 10 have in common is 1. So there's no need for me to do anything else because I cannot simplify this fraction. Again, when I am adding and subtracting unlike fractions, step 1 is to find the least common denominator. Step 2 is to create equivalent fractions with that denominator. Step 3 is to perform the operation. So perform addition or subtraction. And then step 4 is simplify if needed. Simplify if needed. A good reminder, a good thing to know is that it does not matter whether your numerator or whether your fractions are listed horizontally or vertically. So 1/5 plus 1/2 is the same thing as 1/5 plus 1/2. It doesn't matter how it's written, you're going to approach it the same way. All right, make sure that if you have a model that you are looking carefully at what is being provided to you, and make sure that you can decide if you have the same denominator, if you have a like denominator or an unlike denominator. Sometimes you're going to see pictures and it may look like this. And remember we always assume that our whole that we're working with is the same size. And that way when it's divided into pieces, we're dealing with really truly the same size whole. Okay, so it doesn't matter if we're dealing with fifths or halves. All that matters is that the wholes are the same size, and then we divide them into the correct amount. So 1/2 over here, and then here is our fifths. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 1/5 plus 1/2. That's our picture. And then it equals 1, 2, 3. Oops. 4, 5. We can divide. Again, you pretend like all the pieces are the same size. Mrs. Cito didn't do a very good job. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're going to color in 2, 4, 6, 7/10. So this represents 1/5 plus 1/2 equals 7/10. And the way that we know that is by counting the pieces. So don't forget that they may show you a model to represent the value of the fractions that you are adding together. Even if they show you a model, you have to find the least common denominator.